Good afternoon, Bio 12 class, and hopefully you're having or have had a really good long weekend. We're going to move into the respiration system unit. This is basically how we breathe. So some main ideas, why do we breathe? So we're going to breathe in order to bring in oxygen gas in order to exchange gas with our blood, and then we also are breathing to get rid of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a waste product. Another main idea, structure and function. So what they look like in the pathway and what their function is. And we can look at one of our reactions, making connections with our past unit. So in our digestive system, we broke down starch to produce glucose, and then that reacted with oxygen in order to create the energy that we need. So in order to create that energy, our respiration system needs to bring in that oxygen and to react with our glucose, and this creates carbon dioxide waste that we want to expel. So why are we bringing in oxygen? So oxygen is taken in for cellular respiration in order to create the energy that we need in order to do things like run. So this creates cellular respiration, creates the energy that we need in order to move. Why are we expelling carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a waste product, and we want to get rid of the waste product. So basically, when we think of this, we can think about our waste as our trash, and our respiration system wants to take out the trash. 3 types of respiration. So the first type, external. This is going to be gas exchange with our blood vessels and our alveoli. So alveoli are in our lungs, and we're going to talk about alveoli a little bit further into the lesson. So we're bringing the oxygen in, and it's going into our blood. Internal respiration, so this is when it's now in, our oxygen is in our blood vessels, and they're going to exchange gas with our cells. Exchange gas, with the cells of our body. Now we have our gas in our cells, so cellular respiration can occur in our mitochondria, and this is what, like we said, in our cells. So again, we have our glucose from our digestive system. Now we bring in oxygen from our respiration system, and this creates carbon dioxide waste, water, and our energy. So looking at the pathway a little bit, we have 2 tracks. We have our upper respiratory tract, we have our lower respiratory tract, and some of the other structures in it. We have our nasal cavity, and we have our oral cavity. We've talked about our epiglottis already in our digestive system. We have our pharynx, again, we've already talked about. We also have our larynx, our trachea, we have bronchi, and then we have our alveoli in our lungs. So let's talk about these structures a little bit. We have our nasal and our oral cavity. So this is where air is coming in, and when air comes in, 3 things need to occur. The air needs to be cleaned. This is by our cilia and our mucus and the hairs in our nose. And we can think of our cilia as the brooms that are going to sweep any of the debris, and our mucus is going to trap any of that debris in order to trap it so that it's not going to enter our lungs. So think about it as when you're blowing your nose after you played in the dirt. When you blow it, you're blowing out the dirt into your tissue, and this dirt is trapped in our mucus so that it's not entering our lungs. The air also needs to be warmed, so it's going to be warmed by blood vessels. So we can think about this as when we have a shower. The steam from our shower warms our air, so our blood vessels are going to warm our air when it comes in. Air also needs to be moistened. Again, this is going to be by mucus, and the mucus moistens our air so that our tissues in our respiratory system don't dry out. So our pharynx, this is the passage for food and air. They contain our tonsils. So our tonsils participate in our immune response. And this is kind of a controversy of our tonsils because they participate in immune response, but they also are trapping bacteria, which gives us illnesses like tonsillitis, and it's just a controversy of whether we keep them in or we remove those tonsils. So moving into our glottis, this is our opening. So we can see in this diagram here, the opening is our glottis, and our glottis is going to be covered by the structure that we've already talked about, our epiglottis. So our epiglottis is just the flap of skin that's going to cover our glottis so that food doesn't enter into our lungs. So looking in this diagram here, you can see this flap of skin. This is our epiglottis. And our hole is going, or our opening is going to be our glottis. So this diagram is what it would look like when the doctor sticks the compression in and then you say, ah. This is what he's looking at. So our larynx, this is sometimes we call this our voice box because our larynx contains our vocal cords, which give us pitch for our voices and when we're singing, and the muscles in our vocal cords are going to tighten to increase the pitch or to give us a high pitch, and they're going to loosen to give us a lower pitch. So we have a real quick video clip for you to look at of our vocal cords. So we also have our trachea. Our trachea is what we consider our windpipe, and this is where air enters. It has cartilage rings, so you can see on the side, here's the cartilaginous rings. And these cartilage rings are going to protect, support, and give us structure of our trachea in order so that it doesn't collapse, because if it collapses, we're not going to be able to have gas exchange. We also have goblet cells in our trachea. These are going to produce mucus, and they're going to contain cilia, again, for sweeping out any debris and trapping any debris so that they don't enter our lungs. So looking at this diagram, it's our epithelial cells. Here's our goblet cells. So here's the mucus that's being created, and then you can see the cilia on the outside of the goblet cells for the sweeping motion. So we have our bronchi. So our trachea branches into two branches. These are our bronchi, so you can see here our two bronchi. Bronchus is plural. These are going to branch into secondary bronchi, so you can see the branching here, secondary bronchi, and then they branch even further into our bronchioles. And our bronchioles eventually reach our alveoli. The further that you go down with the branching, the thinner the walls get, and the thinner walls are going to be the thinnest once we reach our alveoli. So our alveoli, this is where gas exchange occurs. And they have extremely thin walls in order to facilitate the exchange with our blood vessels. So looking at the diagram, we have it's a grape-like cluster, and this is going to increase surface area in order to increase the amount of diffusion that occurs between our alveoli and our blood vessels. So let's look at our functions of our alveoli. They're grape-like clusters. We said this increases the surface area for maximum diffusion. They have really thin walls. These thin walls are going to give us an increased diffusion of our gases with our blood vessels. And then they are very dense with capillaries. So capillary beds are basically like teeny tiny vessels, of blood vessels, and the more there are of capillaries, the more area there is for oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. So this is going to increase gas exchange. Our alveoli are going to be lined with pulmonary surfactant, and this just has hydrophobic and hydrophilic properties, where the hydrophilic heads are going to face the water in order to lower surface tension. So this decreases surface tension, and the reason why we want to decrease surface tension is to allow our alveoli to refill once they've collapsed from the oxygen exchange. So again, they have hydrophobic and philic properties. Our alveoli are going to be moist. This moistened walls aids in diffusion of the gas. And then we have our stretch receptors. So this is going to prevent our alveoli from overfilling. So this is like when you take a breath, at a certain point you can't take in any more oxygen. This is our receptors telling our lungs that our alveoli are full. So summary, why do we breathe? Structure and function of pathway. These are important things to take out of this lesson. Since there was no hidden picture, we have a nice little video.